Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to our latest webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly as part of our Roadmap to Recovery series. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today for the first time by Michael Edwards, who is, of course, the Managing Director at Explore. Been in the role about a year, Michael, and it's just fantastic to see you. How are you?
Hi, Lucy. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I've been in the role a year. Yeah, it's great to see you too.
And exciting times for you because obviously lots going on, but not least something you launched very recently, which is your new calculator, calculating the carbon emissions on all of Explore's trips, which is quite some undertaking, I imagine. So tell us a little bit about it. Why have you chosen to do this?
Yeah, look, it's been, as you say, a huge undertaking, but I think a very necessary one for us. We, Explore, I think, has always been sort of a leader in sustainable travel, but that's not enough these days. You know, we are undeniably in a climate crisis, and we work in an industry that, you know, has a significant impact on the climate. But we love traveling. You know, my generation, we've always had the fortune to travel, and we want future generations to travel. So not traveling is not the answer. It's about having a climate action plan, a mitigation plan. And we can't really go out and talk about that to our customers if we're not prepared to be transparent about the amount of carbon we're emitting on our current trips. Obviously, what we do has huge benefits for the communities in which we travel in terms of GDP in those regions, tourism money. But of course, we're adding to some of the problems around the climate crisis. So we felt the best way to do that is you know, really have a look and see what the true carbon measure of our trips were. And it's a very complicated process. We worked with a company called eCollective who are kind of leading the way in this, and a very manual process. So we've literally measured every single aspect of all of our trips, from the hotels we stay in to the transport we use, the restaurants we go to, the offices in Farnborough, where, you know, obviously the guys are servicing that. And we've come up with what we believe is a pretty accurate carbon score for every one of our 515 trips. It's taken a long time. There's been about 2,000 hotels inputted and measured, about 400 people hours to do. So it's been no small undertaking. And of course, it's the first step. So now what we can do for every trip, for every Explore trip, you will see a carbon score, and that's the amount of carbon that's emitted on average for that particular trip. And they range hugely, as you can imagine. So, you know, 7 days of bullet trains around Japan versus 5 days walking in Tuscany is hugely different.
Yeah.
So for us, it allows us to do two things. One is be truly transparent with our customers so that they can make better choices. And that's not to not travel. I've been asked a few times, is there a risk that people won't take the higher carbon trips? And we believe they will, but it's a bit like calories on food. You know, it's about having a balanced diet.
So Michael, just to interrupt, so once you show people what the output, or, you know, is in terms of carbon, do you expect them to make a choice then that they might want to take a lower carbon trip, or do you think they'll say, okay, I will take the higher one, but I'll then offset it? Like, what's the sort of outcome you're looking for?
Yeah, look, my view is kind of knowledge is power. We certainly don't want people not to take all of our higher carbon trips, because our business would contract pretty quickly. But we do want, I think in all walks of life, whether it's, you know, it's about having a balance. So if you know that if you're going to do a long haul flight and go to a destination, if you know that has a high carbon score, you may offset it with something else. You may do less, you know, you may do more trips closer to home, or you might do a different style of travel, or you might mitigate it with something else. But I think it's kind of, the onus is on us to give the customer that transparency so they can make smarter choices. We don't think they'll travel less. We just think they'll find a balance in their lives around where they can contribute, you know, to mitigating for themselves. The other thing, and I think the key bit is, the other reason we've done this is that absolutely so we can bring those carbon scores down. And of course, you can't do that until you know what the score is. So we have a goal to reduce our carbon emissions 50% by 2030. We have that for our brand and across all of the hotel plan brands. And the best way for us to do that was to understand exactly what we're emitting now And then we can start to work with our operators, our suppliers, and our partners to find ways
it
to
goes all
mitigate
down
that.
the chain, doesn't it? You need everybody
Absolutely.
else to do it as well. Okay. And I mean, you said at the outset that this is a global crisis. You know, we're hearing about it all the time. And actually, you did some research, didn't you, before you embarked on this new project around what people want to see. And I think you found 76% of people would like more transparency. So you're doing it because it's important to you, but you're saying actually the consumer is interested more now anyway. That's a huge number, isn't it? 76%.
Yeah, we were surprised. We thought the number would be reasonably high because, you know, it's a high news agenda. We've just come off the back of COP26. And I think people who travel, particularly travel on our style of travel, want to know what the situation is and what they can do to mitigate it in some ways. But 76% was really high. And again, that kind of just reaffirmed to us that we need to be transparent. And then again, if you give the customer knowledge, that knowledge is power for the customer, and they can make better choices. And of course, it holds us to account. We can't put this out, and in 5 years' time, if our highest carbon emitting trips are still have scores of that, we haven't done our job, and our customers will vote to go somewhere else and to operators who've done a better job around, you know, protecting the climate and the environment. So it really does hold us to account. But we're pretty sure from the research we've done that customers definitely want it and they'll use it.
And sorry, the people, how many people did you survey, and was it customers or was it general public?
It was our customers. It was our customers generally. Yeah. So
I mean, I'm interested in that because, like you said, being an adventure company and the nature of your business, you know, you have been at the forefront working towards a sustainable travel, and obviously your customers perhaps are sort of more in tune with that. And we're talking here about how this is important for the whole of the travel industry. So I wonder if we'd have asked general public, would it have been as high as 76%? You know, do people generally care, or is it more just people who are more interested in your type of travel?
Look, it's a really good question, Lucy, and I don't have a simple answer. I think if you give people the transparency, they start to care. Right. Now, that doesn't mean everyone will make better choices or will go out of their way. But I think once people have that transparency and knowledge, at least they can make informed decisions. You know, we liken the comparison to calories on food packaging, and recently they introduced calories into restaurants. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but you can then start to make choices about, it doesn't mean you're not going to eat that big high calorie donut, right? But you might eat less of them and offset it with a plate of vegetables. I'm being a bit glib, but you know what I mean.
No, it's a good analogy. It's a good analogy. I get it.
And I think people will start to care when it's such a big thing, isn't it? The climate crisis. And you think, what can you do as an individual? It seems you seem fairly powerless apart from recycling and all of the things we do in the course of our day. But I think if you give people that insight and that transparency and some data, and they can see that they're making a difference, all of those things add up once the individual starts to see that they can have an impact. Yeah. You know, you multiply that by the amount of packs on our trips and the other operators, suddenly that's quite a powerful impact. And the travel industry doesn't have to gnash its teeth and wonder if we're the problem, you know, and it often gets the finger pointed at it, but I think it's a pretty responsible industry, you know, and we all want to find ways to improve the situation and preserve the legacy of traveling, I think. Yeah.
I want to come on to what the whole industry can do in a second, but just before we move on, around the point about it, once you've got the knowledge and you've got the transparency, so you've got that knowledge, you can maybe take fewer long haul trips, whatever. But also, you know, can customers pay to offset? Can they pay towards rewilding projects? Because you're doing a lot, aren't you, in terms of things in destinations, whether it's rewilding or you've got the cooler, you've got ecology, you've got different projects you're supporting. Is that something customers can pay into if they want to, or is that something that you might add on as a fee for them if they want to do it?
It's a great question. Currently not. I think we feel the onus is on us to work with our partners and suppliers and find ways to make our trips more lower the carbon. Obviously offsetting with the flights has been going on for a long time, but it's not something we're looking for customers to contribute to at this point in time. It's an interesting concept though, particularly around things like rewilding. We're working with Rewilding Britain, which is one of the first sort of travel partnerships that they've had. And I can see that expanding for us, working with lots of other rewilding partners around the globe. And I think what we'll do is kind of assess customer appetite for what we're doing. You know, the carbon measurement stuff went out a couple of weeks ago and has been well received. We'll continue to update continuously around our climate sort of action plan, which is fairly comprehensive. And then I think what we'll do is we'll go back to customers and see what the appetite is. And you can do it two ways. You can cost some of this stuff into trips. You can bear the cost as a cost of doing business, or you can almost partner with your customer and say, hey, we all want to preserve the legacy of traveling for the next generation. We can maybe do this together. That it's an interesting point, and I hadn't actually thought of looking at it from that point of view, but definitely something to think about.
It comes up quite a lot in conferences I moderate on different sectors of travel, but it's like, how much are we doing it? Is it because it's the right thing to do as travel companies, or how much is driven by customers? And I know your research says that they want to see transparency, but did you ask them if they're prepared to pay a little bit more to travel with a company that is, you know, operating sustainably? Or because it comes to that point, like, what, you know, they might make a good choice, but are they prepared to pay for that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a great point, and as you say, it's a hot topic, right? We all want to improve things, but the significant change comes at a cost, and there will be, you know, there are costs associated with just doing this project in terms of resources and people, and consultancy was high, and then there'll be costs in country as we start to do things that mitigate. And I think over time people will get more comfortable with the notion that there may be a bit of a price tag to some of this stuff. But I also think for the savvy operators who jump on this, and it's really part of their DNA about doing this stuff, I think commercially we'll end up attracting more customers. Now, selfishly, that's great for us because it means we as a business we grow and we can do more of this stuff. But that's not the solution for everyone. You know, you look at Venice is looking like they'll introduce, you know, an entry fee soon, and I think we'll start to see a lot of that in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned then about companies jumping on the back, you know, getting behind this. And I know you're not just doing this yourself, but you are calling, aren't you, for other operators to follow suit and do something similar. I know you're calling it your Clear on Carbon campaign, because you do want the industry to sort of get on board generally to support this and be more transparent.
Yeah, we'd absolutely love them to. Look, and that's why we're happy to share all of our data on this and our methodology. And, you know, of course, we're glad that we've got out there and done it. And I think it's good to lead the way in some things. And other operators are doing fantastic stuff. But I think, again, a bit like the calories on food, if every travel business had this and it was transparent for customers, I think the potential to change things as an industry is that much more powerful. It's great to be a trailblazer, and us and others are hopefully, just because of the legacy of our businesses, are probably a bit further ahead than some other sectors in the industry. But really, I think the industry can do some really powerful things if they adopt something like this.
Should it be a voluntary thing though, or should this, you know, should all companies have to do this? I mean, I guess you have to bring in legislation or something, but I mean, that's the issue, isn't it? Everybody's at different stages. I know you say some are doing some other great things, but not all are at the same stage you're at.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a balance, isn't there, between what's done voluntarily and what's done through legislation. And I think those two things over coming years will start to get a bit closer together. I mean, there will need to be some form of legislation around some of the actions that came out of COP26 and, you know, the Glasgow Declaration. But I'd like to see the industry take a lead where possible. And I know this isn't easy stuff. So, you know, we're not calling anyone out to say, hey, if you're not doing this, you don't care. We recognize it's hard. And, you know, we're a mid-sized business, and we're probably ahead of the game just because of the legacy of the business. So for us, it was perhaps an easier move. And for others, I recognize it's not so easy. But I think if you can do it voluntarily, and I'd love, you know, if there was a forum for us to agree a standard, and, you know, I'd like to get in ahead of that legislation if we can. But I think ultimately over time, there will be forms of legislation that for all areas of climate action, not just in the travel industry. But if we could get ahead of that curve, that would be a pretty powerful thing, I think.
Oh God, absolutely. I mean, it's always better to do it before you're made to, isn't it? So absolutely. And in terms of I know it's not been, you've only announced this last week, but have you had any feedback yet from customers about what you're doing, or from the industry, and maybe, you know, your competitor set of people, you know, receive this well?
Yeah, it's been, look, Explore has a very loyal customer base who are very interactive and engaged with us. I've never worked in a job where I get so many emails from customers. It's a lovely thing, and the feedback has been good. And some people are saying, you know, does that, and we've had a few of those questions, does that mean I shouldn't travel on the higher carbon trips, a bit like you asked before? You know, and we work through and answer those questions for customers, and we'll get better at explaining that, you know, via our websites and in our comms, etc. Other partners, particularly those in our space, we've been sharing the information already, and we've had some good chats with other partners. And I think importantly, our staff absolutely love it, because, you know, we've made some internal commitments to reduce, you know, Hotel Plan as a group, of which we're part, signing up for the Glasgow Declaration with our sister company in Switzerland was huge, because it's not necessarily easy for those businesses. You know, we have ski businesses and the like, and that is much harder. So that commitment for our staff to see us putting actions into place around that Glasgow Declaration commitment has been great. The feedback internally has been fantastic.
Yeah, and of course the other important people to you, Michael, are travel agents who sell your product, and clearly will be watching this. And I know you're offering sort of extra training if they need a little bit more explanation around what you're doing, this carbon calculator. And you know, what will you be telling them? Because they might get asked about it, mightn't they, by customers going, oh, hang on a minute, this one's got a much higher. What are you hoping to sort of, you know, how agents can help you with this?
They will, and they absolutely will get asked questions. And again, it's, you know, it's a lot. Agents do an amazing job representing hundreds of products across multiple operators and different travel types, and it's a lot of information to absorb. But you know, the feedback we get from agents is they are getting asked more and more about sustainable styles of travel, and is it a sustainable way to travel? And again, coming back to that knowledge is power. It's our job, as it always is, you know, whether it's around product or in this case around carbon. We'll work really closely with our agents to understand if it's useful to them, how they talk about it, what it means, help them out with any difficult questions. You know, and again, your point before, I'm sure some agents will get asked, well, what does that mean? You know, well, why should I take a higher carbon scored trip with Explore? So we'll work really, luckily we have a couple of fantastic BDMs in Nick and Pip, and Ben, who leads our trade team. They'll work really closely with the industry to make sure it's a practical use for them.
Yeah, I know you've said they can book appointments so they can learn more, and I guess you're going to offer training. So I mean, that would be great, because it's, as you say, it's another thing to have to understand, and they want to, you know, be able to answer with authority. That's always what they like to be able to do. Yeah,
and everyone will be at different stages. You know, we work with some agents that, you know, sell our type of travel really well, so they understand it and they get it, and their customer base is a bit different. And then you get some of those agents that are still relatively new to our sector, and you know, we'll walk them through it as we always do. It's our job to enable them to give better outcomes to their customers. So yeah, we'll work through it with them pretty closely.
You're going to get a whole load more emails, I think, Michael. So.
We get quite a lot anyway, but that's great. Any interaction with the brand is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's great that people, as you say, I mean, it is a key focus for everybody, for the whole industry, and it's great that questions are now being asked about it a lot more. All right, let's I mean, it's great to talk about that, but given this is the first time we've had a chance to chat since you took on your new role, perhaps you can just give us a little update on how things are going. I'm hoping that you're getting some momentum back now, as many people are telling us is happening in the industry. Just give us an idea of, you know, what you're seeing out in the market, any trends that you're noticing, what's looking good for this year, and how far are you back on track to where you want to be?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the role a year, and obviously we weren't operating when I started in the role. So the first step was get back operating. We had a really good program in the UK that sold out. You know, we all of us had to adapt, and we put in a UK, you know, pretty broad UK program for the first time last year, and it sold really well. As you can imagine, it was about the only place people could go.
Yeah.
And then slowly the country started to open up, and we saw, you know, from November onwards, pretty good booking trends. We had a phenomenal January, on par with 2019. We had our second biggest sales day ever in January. We had a promotion on, of course, like a lot of operators do in January. But you know, we've all talked about this notion of pent-up demand, but to see that in action and the proof of that coming through in bookings was great. I would say, obviously, the travel industry, there are always obstacles in the way. And obviously with the situation in Ukraine, that again has caused some challenges around impacting some of the travel. That pales absolutely into insignificant in what's happening in Ukraine. But of course, it has taken the window out of our sales for a few of those destinations, which for Explore were big ones. But as we've come through Easter now and heading into sort of the rest of the year, we're seeing really strong demand for 23. We are a couple of % up on 2023 sales from where we were in 2019. So that's the first time that we're truly ahead of the 2019 curve.
Right.
Like I'm sure everyone you speak to, we cannot wait to get rid of 2019 comparisons.
I know.
This will be the last year of them. We're still seeing a lot of trend for shorter booking windows, and a lot of Europe. Our Europe trips are sort of still flying well. The booking window has definitely come down, and that's because a lot of those long haul destinations are still coming back online in sort of dribs and drabs.
And how does that affect you? Sorry, Michael, but how does that affect you then? Like, as that window is shorter, is it just harder for you because you've got to hold your nerve because you don't know if people are going to book certain tours? And then I guess does it mean that some tours, you don't know if they're going to go ahead because you're still waiting? Or how does it affect you as operationally?
You do have to hold your nerve a bit. We did, luckily, our team did some great modelling around how we thought it might play out. And Ukraine aside, it has played out fairly closely to what we would think would happen. Lots of Europe, lots of later booking windows, long haul people having confidence to book long haul destinations from 23 onwards. Okay. So we've been quite lucky in our forecasting. So we haven't had to cancel too much. And indeed, we've been able to anticipate increased capacity for Europe, particularly certain destinations in Europe and places like Turkey and now Morocco coming back online. So I wouldn't say to say anything out of the pandemic has been plain sailing or easy. would be wrong. But the way we look at it now and Explore, we don't really use the COVID word anymore. We just see it now as an ongoing operational issue. Yeah. It's a big one, no doubt. Yeah. But we're all used to dealing with operational issues, and we try and build it into our normal operational sort of day-to-day programs now. Yeah, but it's definitely looking good for the future.
Oh, I'm so pleased. I mean, it's just so nice. I mean, I've done a lot of these webcasts where it was not quite so positive as
I'm sure, yeah.
So it is nice to be talking about positive things. I know one thing that operators had to introduce is much more flexibility because of, the world has changed. And is that here to stay, do you think? Have you had to just be much more flexible about all of what you offer and how you deal with your customers?
I think it is here to stay because two things: customers love flexibility, right? And
they always wanted it, but tour operators didn't necessarily have to give it. But now, they had to, didn't they? Afterwards, and I think it's.
I actually welcome it. I came into business a year ago, and it's fair to say, Explore perhaps hasn't taken as much of the slice of its sector, the market share that it could have done in the last 5 to 10 years. It's a great brand and it was doing well, but other operators came into the space and did a really good job of, increasing the market share for sort of small group adventure travel. So for me, it's around what can we do differently, Explore? How can we get customers to book with us? How can we make the brand sort of innovative and vital and dynamic again? So some of these challenges have actually been really great for Explore. I won't pretend for a second that 2 years of the pandemic has been a good thing, far from it. But it's forced us particularly to think differently about some of the ways we did things in the past. So from my perspective, we will do everything in our power to keep these things and overcome our own internal challenges and always try and give customers a better outcome. So bit of a long-winded answer, but I think it's here to stay, and personally I welcome it.
Yes, and I'm now very excited about what we're going to see from the Explore stable. Now you've had all this time to work out how you're going to get back this market share, because you're right, it is a growing segment of the market, isn't it? And you're right, we've had new entrants into it and it's had a lot more share of voice, and we've talked about it an awful lot more at Travel Weekly. So can you whet our appetite at all? Can you tell us anything that we might be seeing from you guys later this year and into 2023 that makes you stand out or gives you a USP in this sector?
Yeah, look, and I think as I say, I've worked for a few operators in this space, and they're all doing a phenomenal job, and they're all great businesses. And the market is there is sustained growth in the small group adventure travel market. There's no doubt about that. And there'll also, I think, be a migration from other types of travel into more experiential travel for a number of reasons, but particularly around the state's sustainability piece. From an Explore perspective, we'll continue to innovate and pioneer around product. Even though the pandemic was on, we developed a lot of new product. We didn't really downsize our teams at all. So, you know, we were able to get new trips out. You know, we launched Saudi Arabia. So I think we're kind of one of the few operators of our size kind of pioneering in Saudi Arabia. As I say, our UK program was pretty extensive. We've focused a lot on the sustainability stuff because we think, A, it's the right thing to do, but we think it will be a driver of the sector and people coming in. So the carbon, you'll see a lot more of that stuff come out. You'll just see us be a lot more dynamic, hopefully, in the market. The Explore brand probably hasn't been out there as much as it could or should have been. That's not a criticism, but you know, I come from businesses that are high growth and very marketing led, and you'll probably see a bit more of that. Hopefully we'll be a lot more vocal. We're definitely getting out and supporting trade. We've signed up some good new partnerships in the last 6 months. That's very much part of our plans, and I think hopefully you'll see a bit more of a dynamic, energized Explore that is just really customer focused and wanting to do good things in the market.
Brilliant. All right, well, we will hold you to that, Michael.
Good.
And we look forward to it, and we will enjoy writing all about the things that you do when you let us know about them, and we'll put those in Travel Weekly. So, but great news on the carbon calculator. I think that's fantastic. We're really interested to catch up with you as well and see how that goes and how that develops. So we'll come back to you and chat about that. But best of luck with it, and for the rest of this year and for 2023.
Thanks, Lucy. It's been really good to talk to you.
Likewise. See you soon.
See you, Lucy. Bye.